I'm not going to read bios in the program, but actually Kathleen's wasn't in the program because she stepped in to pinch hit. And so I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell you what she's up to now, and she's going to give us a presentation about insurance and coverage, which I know many of you are very interested in.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Yay. Oh. What's up?
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good morning, and it's nice to see everybody. I hope you had fun at the party last night. I couldn't stay because I have a geriatric dog at home who was about to make a puddle on the floor, so I went home to help him out. So I hope you had fun. It's an honor for me to be presenting to family members of F.E.A.S.T, and I'm really thankful that the board allowed me to step in Lisa's place. Just to take care of business, this is our contact information. You can find us on the web at kantorlaw.net. Help me. Does anybody know how to do this? Even though my last name is MacDonald, I don't know how to use a Mac. Thank you. Okay. Oh, we're going to Skype. Who should we call? Thank you. Thanks a lot. And then what do you do to make it do things, like go down? How do you... Clearly, I present for a living. Page down. I don't know where page down is. Oh. No. So, anyway.
Amy?
Yeah, it's all good. So today...
It's the escape button.
Okay. It'll, be good.
Just a minute. I use it every day, but the arrow won't.
It's okay.
Oh, it did.
Oh. Okay.
There you go. Okay. Okay.
Good, because I didn't have this memorized. Thank you very much.
Here, I'm just going to get something off your screen.
Okay. When should I present? Thank you. Okay, so good, because I really did not have this memorized. So I'm really thankful for the technical help today. So we have a lot to talk about in a short amount of time because I have a timer and I have 41 minutes left, and we need to do question and answers because I'm sure that many of you have questions about insurance. How many of you have actually tried to use your insurance plan to get treatment for your loved one? Raise your hands, please. Holy cow. Put your hands down. How about, are there any of you who never tried to use insurance for your loved one or your patients? Okay. How many of you found using your insurance company easy when you tried to get? A few hands go up. Interesting. It depends on which time. Okay. Ken from Aetna is a good guy. Shout out to you, Ken. All right. That's interesting. I'm really thrilled to see some hands go up to say that you have had an easy time. I think the majority of you have had difficulties, and that is the norm for people who try to use their insurance benefits to get treatment, whether it's outpatient, inpatient, partial hospitalization, residential coverage. I think most people have had some sort of difficulty with navigating their insurance company. Even simply getting a copy of your policy or your plan can take an exorbitant amount of effort on the family's behalf. I helped a family in Maryland last year who was having trouble with their insurance company, and they contacted me kind of after the fact that their daughter had been in treatment. They ended up paying out of pocket for treatment, as so many families do when they can't access their insurance benefits. And we eventually went to a hearing in front of the insurance commissioner in Maryland, and we had been trying for 8 months, 8 long months, to get a copy of their policy so that we knew what their benefits were. Because how are we supposed to advocate for the patient if we don't know what the benefits are? Well, the insurance company, oh, we can't find it. Oh, we can't email it to you. No, you know what, we're updating it. All of these excuses. And I didn't know about Lisa at the time. I wish I had. So we arrived at the hearing, and oh, it's so nice to meet you. Great to see you today. And I'm like, yeah, really, I'm sure you're thrilled to see Lisa does the work she does. When I first met Lisa Kantor, I asked her, so what made you get into the field? You must have known somebody with an eating disorder, right? Because that's why so many of us get into the field. And she said no. She heard what was happening to families and patients with eating disorders and their insurance companies. And she said it's wrong, it's an injustice, and I believe we need to do something about it. So right then and there, I knew I want to work with this woman because she has the heart of gold, and I'm just really honored to be a part of her team now. Some of the ways that Kantor and Kantor can assist you and your patients or your families in the future is that we're the only law firm in the country who deals with a specific eating disorder practice. So a lot of people think that all we do is advocate for people who have been kicked out of residential treatment. We do a lot more than that. We can help people navigate their insurance from day one, including helping you get a copy of your policy and plan so that you know what your son or daughter's benefits are. We help with denials, we help with appeals, we can assist your outpatient treatment team in writing appeal letters, with rebutting denials. So there are a whole lot of ways that we can assist you. Please never hesitate to contact us, even if it is something that you think, oh no, I should really handle this on my own. Never hesitate to reach out to see if we can assist you. Sometimes just having a simple cover letter on letterhead from a law firm goes a long way. I used to do insurance advocacy through a foundation called the F.E.A.S.T Foundation for Recovery and Elimination of Disorders. And let me tell you the difference that a letter coming from a foundation versus coming from a law firm can sometimes have a really effect. So please never hesitate to reach out to help us. We do our work on contingency, so we do not charge a fee up front. We seek to recover any fee insurance company. So again. So some of the things that I want to talk about today, and again, we probably won't get through everything. These are some of the things, including media. How do we use that to inform and educate people about eating disorders and insurance issues? What is insurance? I found out that it's more complicated than I ever wanted to know. How do you access your benefits for treatment? What is the Affordable Care Act, Mental Health Parity? How do those things all tie into eating disorders? What can parents and families do to help this situation that we call insurance and eating disorders? And then question and answer. Clearly, we're not going to get to everything. I want to tell you how I got into the field because the reason I work in the field is very personal to me. The picture on that side is me on June 13th, 2002 with Kitty Weston at my side, and the picture on the right is her daughter, Anna Weston. When I met Kitty Weston on June 13th, 2002, I had been suffering with an eating disorder for roughly 20 years of my life. I had been trying to get insurance to pay for any kind of treatment, outpatient, a registered dietitian, a therapist, a visit to a doctor, anything, for a really long time, and it wouldn't cover anything because I was an eating disorder. And I finally got tired of fighting. I finally got tired of my insurance company telling me that my disease wasn't worthy enough for coverage. And I went to Capitol Hill on June 13th, 2002 to give a speech in front of members of Congress and their staffers, much like the congressional briefing we had the other day that many F.E.A.S.T members came to. And I was talking to them about why we need insurance companies to pay for treatment for people with eating disorders. And my plan was to give my speech and then go commit suicide because I was tired. And lo and behold, Kitty Weston happened to be sharing her story that morning right before my speech. And many of you know Kitty and the story of her daughter Anna. And Anna had committed suicide as a result of her eating disorder. And it was the wake-up call that I needed. I realized that no matter what, my insurance company said that I deserved to get well. And I was going to do everything in my power to not only recover, but fully heal. I really do think that there has been a shift on the Hill thanks to the election, and there won't be as much stagnancy on the Hill this coming year, so I'm looking forward to more of you coming to our Spring Lobby Day, which is in April, and then we also have another one in September, and it would be awesome, truly awesome to have all families who are here present at Lobby Day, because you know, these are some of the reasons, the faces, and you are all some of the reasons why we need to be passionate about insurance coverage for eating disorders. These are young women who lost their lives while they were waiting for treatment. You know, we're talking about media here at the F.E.A.S.T conference, and We at Kantor Kantor have tried to involve the media and get them curious about what's going on in this field of eating disorders. And you know that's a blessing and a curse. I know all the presentations have covered the curses of media coverage and the blessings of it. So Lisa's biggest case that many of you might have heard of, that's the harlot case, made the front page of the New York Times in October of 2011. That's pretty cool. You know, eating disorders on the front page of the New York Times, right? Of course, they put a picture of Janine when she's sick. And then they did share the victory. They shared the great news that it was a major decision by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which ruled that insurance companies must pay for residential treatment for eating disorders and other serious mental illnesses under the state's mental health parity law. Blue Shield had been trying to avoid paying for that. And how Lisa argued that is that they had a skilled nursing facility provision in their insurance company. So if that is something that you're thinking of in terms of your family, or you know other families or your patients who have a skilled nursing provision in their plan, we can try to help you navigate that because of this decision. So it's always a good lesson. Never take no from your insurance company. Let's always try and work something through with them and allow us to help. So we have this big victory on the front page of the New York Times, and that should change things. That should change the way that people perceive eating disorders. That should help eliminate the stigma, right? Yeah. So the #1 reader recommended comment, which I went and double checked this morning at about 4:30, when some of you were up, by the way. There were people posting on my Facebook wall at 5 in the morning. I'm like, I'm only up because I have to be. So it is still the #1 reader-liked comment, and I won't read the whole thing, but let me read you the highlights. The problem here is that eating disorders are a testament to the insanity of our culture. We've morphed the societal insanity into a discrete medical ailment. And we've narrowed our focus into the individuals who are victims of our twisted prosperity rather than dealing on the front end with the mess we've created for ourselves. Okay, so this is the part, I'm going to skip the body dysmorphism part that she talks about, an oddball relationship with food. My recommended treatment would be 6 months as a humanitarian worker in a developing country. I hope you're listening. I hope you're watching on Ustream. That would be a residential treatment program of a whole different sort, and it strikes me as intuitively far more sane than isolation in a program utterly removed from real life where everyone focuses on the pathology. So that is the #1 reader recommended comment from a New York Times story, front page article on eating disorders. So it's a blessing and a curse, our media. But I think that the way that we continue to do this, as much as what Carolyn was talking about yesterday, we continue to sneak in there, and we continue to sneak in with the good, and we continue to sneak in with the good. So I was very busy replying to her comments, and this was one that I wrote. I said, there's so much I could say about this article and the issues it sheds light on, but for now, however, I would just like to address the comments that have been made with regard to not feeling sorry for Sam, who had 4 treatments paid for, and she is now seeking a 5th course in treatment. Sam was also mentioned in the article. I said, I encourage you who do not feel sorry for her to ask yourselves, if this article was about cancer treatment, would I still not feel sorry for Sam because her insurance company won't pay for a 5th round of chemotherapy? Chemotherapy doesn't always work by the end of the 1st or 5th round, and I don't often hear people saying, too bad, but you need to go figure out how to recover from your cancer by yourself. I encourage anyone who thinks that eating disorder sufferers can just recover by stopping their behaviors to recognize that these diseases, just like breast cancer or leukemia, they deserve as much treatment as they need in order to heal. So that is the kind of thing that we're doing, not only individually in the comments on articles that Lisa gets mentioned in, but also as a law firm. So I encourage you, first of all, be careful when you read comments on an article or something, because the comments can drive you insane. And if you pay too much attention to some of the comments, like the one reader wrote about, just go do some humanitarian work and your purging will stop and you'll feel great. If you spend too much time there, you'll probably need therapy yourself. So make your comment and then exit. But that's one of the ways that we're working with media. So not only trying to get eating disorders spoken about in the media with responsible press coverage, but then also commenting back so that we're visible. And then we're also working through mass media, like things with Dr. Oz. How many of you saw his pro-Ana movement, Building Better Anorexic shows? Oh, I'm so glad not many of you saw it. It was absolutely disgusting. He went into way more detail than you could ever imagine, showing how to navigate to the pro-Ana sites, showing pictures from them, et cetera, et cetera. So Lisa and her staff wrote a letter to Dr. Oz, and it was published on the PR Newswire. So that is another way that Kantor Kantor is working to get proper eating disorder coverage in the news. He never responded to us, by the way. He just continued to re-air his show. But it's something that we're monitoring, and we will continue to do that. We also publish our letters on our blog, so if it's something that you're passionate about, getting involved and voicing off to media, and you don't have time to write your own letter, feel free to come to our blog, copy and paste whatever you need, and send in your letter. Because the more letters and emails that these media folks get, the more they might listen. And in fact, they did. Katie Couric reached out to many of us who are professionals in this field, and maybe even some of you. She was looking for older women who were struggling with an eating disorder. I know she reached out to you, Becky, and a lot of our colleagues, and Laura. Yeah, that's right. And she was asking for pictures, and she wanted somebody who is still in the midst of the disease, and, oh yeah, well, we're going to have to ask the weights, etc. So, just a simple way that we in the field, and you as parents or families, if you ever get contacted by media, be vigilant and voice off. This was just a very casual email that I wrote to as many colleagues as I possibly could, and I said, look, if you get contacted by her, be very cautious, because her producer was very enticing about getting people on this show. But, we just communicate this throughout our colleagues, and it actually worked. We encouraged Katie. Enough of us said the same message over and over again. We're not showing pictures. We're not giving you somebody who's sick. We're not going to allow you to ask this person, if they come on your show, any weights or what they eat, et cetera, et cetera. And guess what? The result was Katie did a wonderful show. She didn't have any of us on there who told her what not to do, but she had the wonderful Dr. Cindy Bulick, and this is the only picture I could find. It's the back of Dr. Cindy Bulick's head. But it was a really well-done episode on midlife, or women with eating disorders in midlife. So it just goes to show that it does take perseverance, and it does take persistence. It's going to probably take many more years before media does a responsible job on their own without all of us sounding off repeatedly. But that's fine, because I think we all have the passion.
Sure that happens. So I'd like to just encourage you to use your voice. And even if that's just a simple email, or calling a producer, responding to a show that you've seen or a news article that you've seen, sound off about that. The other way that we use media is to help our clients with insurance. We encourage our clients sometimes, if it's appropriate for them and if their treatment team agrees, for them to make a video of themselves talking about how hard their struggle with their eating disorder has been and why they might need insurance coverage to help them get well. And the reason we do that, the reason we encourage people with an eating disorder to go on camera, is because the way the law works, if an insurance plan is governed by ERISA, the Employee Retirement and Income Security Act, which is a really awfully big law that I didn't go to law school to study, but all of my coworkers did, and so I'm learning it very slowly. But it oversees insurance, and when an insurance plan is governed by ERISA, you do not get a jury trial. So the jury is the judge, and the judge can only look at things that come to him in what's called the claim file. And so, that involves denial letters from the insurance company, appeals, treatment records, that kind of thing. And so what we encourage our clients and families to do is submit a video of the person who's suffering, of the family members, talking one-on-one to the camera, because then we'll include that with all of the medical records and the treatment records and that kind of thing, and the judge can watch it. And that has a powerful effect. So that's another way that we're using media. Okay, so I want to skip forward to the part about this presentation. So what is insurance? How many of you think it's a big bad monster? Wow, I'm impressed. All right, do you also then think it's the fairy godmother? Those of you who didn't raise your hand. Somewhere in the middle. Okay, yeah. There are some really good insurance companies. Who before raised your hand to say that your insurance company was kind of easy to navigate? Raise your hand again. Can you shout out some of those insurance companies? Was it
Aetna,
Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois.
of Illinois? Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois.
Blue Cross Blue Shield of Delaware.
United Healthcare and the United Behavioral aspect of United Healthcare.
Interesting.
They have an advocacy line. You can call and get guidance on how to use it.
I would like to talk to you afterwards. We have a lot of interesting conversations with UBH, so that's great to hear. Yes.
Blue Cross Blue Shield in Massachusetts.
Okay. All right. Wonderful.
Not Blue Cross Blue Shield federal.
Oh, federal. Yeah. They made some significant changes in 2011 and eliminated a lot of coverage for people with eating disorders. And unfortunately, that's Blue Cross Blue Shield federal, is what she said. Unfortunately, we're seeing that translate or trickle down into other Blue Cross plans. So we're actively working on that. Lisa and I and some other folks in the field working with the agencies who oversee that. So we're trying to make some changes. Some of this we're not going to get through because we have not a lot of time left, but anything in here that you want a copy of, please feel free to come up and get my card afterwards and I can send this to you. I wanted to talk about today the types of insurance. Some of you probably know this. They're self-funded, fully insured, and individually purchased insurance. And why that matters is because depending on what type of insurance you have, that determines how your appeals process goes, and that determines whether or not you go to a jury trial, and that determines whether or not you need to go through an appeals process or an expedited appeals process, that kind of thing, before or in the denial process. For time's sake, I'm going to skip through a lot of these. Again, I want to point out this important difference though. A health insurance company or plan that you get through your employer, if it's governed by ERISA, again, there is no trial. There is no trial, jury or otherwise, and that's why we want to use and encourage people to use videos. So I know that's something that I would find taboo before I met Lisa. I would think, no, why would you ever want to put somebody with an eating disorder on camera that's exploiting them? But in this regard, because only the judge will be seeing it and it will be helpful towards that client's case, that's why we would want to do that. There are no damages that you can get if you have a plan that's governed by ERISA, so no pain and suffering. I was in a car accident, rear-ended by a lady who was texting in a prescription. So of all things to be texting, right? How are you looking at your body? So I can get damages for being hit by her, but you cannot, if you have an insurance policy governed by ERISA, get damages for your pain and suffering. The claimants or the patients must undergo an internal appeal, so that's something important to know. If you're somebody who is trying to figure out what kind of coverage that you have and what your insurance plan or policy means, look to see if it's governed by ERISA, because that will determine if you have to go through an appeals process before you can go to trial. And again, the judge under an ERISA plan will review the contents of the internal appeal file and very little else, and that is why, again, we encourage people to produce a video. So if you have individual insurance that's not governed by insurance, there are typically no appeals required before a lawsuit can be filed. And that is good, because if you are somebody who has a son or daughter who needs treatment and the insurance company denies, or they authorized 2 days and then they said she's gaining weight, so then they kicked her out, discharged her from treatment, you don't have to go through an appeals process, which is nice. It saves time, potentially could save a life. You have the opportunity to go in front of a jury, so it's not a lifetime appointed judge making a decision about your son or daughter. You can produce evidence from outside, just the medical and treatment records, and you can also get damages. So benefits, you can sue for emotional distress, attorney's fees, and punitive damages. I'm going to skip through a bunch of these. Not a lot of homework for you in here, but you get to skip the homework. Is there a faster way to do this?
That's okay. We're enjoying it. Let's see.
We're speed reading.
Yeah, we're speed reading.
I do have a lot of information in here about how you can be your own, your child's own advocate. So please, again, we're not going to get to it all, so please feel free to contact me about that. the biggest thing that you need to know, I stole this from your blog, Laura, this time. So the biggest thing you need to know about advocating on behalf of your son or daughter or yourself, confirm everything in writing. Because the insurance company will say one thing and you'll see another thing come through on a sheet of paper that they send you if you don't confirm it in writing. So if you are on the phone with somebody and they say, yes, we will authorize unlimited days of treatment for your son or daughter, outpatient therapy, whatever it may be, then you write a letter and you say, I am just writing to confirm the conversation that I had with you on such and such a date, that you authorized unlimited visits to my child's therapist. Thank you so much. Sign it, send it certified mail if possible, but whatever you do, confirm it in writing. If all you can do is send an email, that's awesome. Just confirm in writing. Handwritten note on a napkin, send it. That works. But again, if you don't do that, we find way too often that the insurance company twists their words later on. So, and I was going to talk to you about how to do appeals, but I want to leave plenty of time for question and answer. But the last thing that I do want to talk to you about is outside of insurance. What can you do? We have a lot of solutions out there for what we can do. We can be individual advocates. You can come work for Kantor Kantor. You can continue to advocate for your son and daughter individually every other day after insurance denies more treatment. And I also want to suggest that you become part of the F.E.A.S.T group who came to Capitol Hill the other day and advocated on behalf of the F.E.A.S.T Act. The F.E.A.S.T Act is the federal response to eliminate eating disorders. It is the only bill in the history of Congress to address treatment, research, education, and prevention with regards to eating disorders. So what it says specifically about treatment is that if an insurance company covers medical and surgical benefits, then they must address and cover eating disorders. So even with mental health parity, I know a lot of people thought, well, that's going to be, that takes care of everything. It actually didn't, because we were not able to get eating disorders specifically included in the mental health parity bill. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're excluded, but it doesn't mean that they're included, and they can be specifically excluded, which is what we find in Federal Blue Cross Blue Shield set the stage for that. So that's part of the reason the F.E.A.S.T Act is really important. It also helps people who are of lower income to get coverage for treatment. So people with Medicaid would finally be able to get eating disorder treatment. So I highly encourage you to come be part of our next lobby days, and hopefully we'll do another one with F.E.A.S.T specifically for parents and families. I've been doing lobby days for a long time, and it was one of my favorites because just seeing family members together, advocating together for something that they've been suffering with was very, very powerful. And I have a good feeling that members of Congress who've heard the stories of families the other day are going to sign on to the F.E.A.S.T Act. Other advocacy that you can do, stay connected after this weekend. Friend us on Facebook or the Eating Disorders Legal Assistance, or just look up Kantor Kantor, you'll find us. Friend the Eating Disorders Coalition on Facebook. Pray. If you pray, I highly recommend that you pray about insurance, you pray for this field, you pray for yourselves, you pray for everybody who's advocating on behalf of people who need help. Call your local newspaper and tell them where you were this weekend. Tell them about this conference. Tell them about the F.E.A.S.T Act. Tell them what's on your heart. See if they'll do a story on it. Again, come to the Hill, and please allow us to help you. Again, no problem is too small to call us about. We would be happy to review your plan or policy. We'd be happy to make a call to an an emergency room in the middle of the night for you if that would help. And it did help the other night at 1 in the morning. I talked to somebody out in Minnesota at like 1 in the morning, and they were able to keep the patient at least overnight because they knew that Kantor Kantor was behind the patient and was willing to work their insurance for them. So please allow us to help you. And I leave you with this quote. Each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring those ripples, build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. And I firmly believe that's what we can all do together. Sorry we didn't get to everything, but I really did want to leave the allotted time for question and answers, and I think I have, okay, I tried to do better than Carol and Manch. I only have 5 minutes left. Thanks, Steph.
Julie O'Toole. I'm a provider, not a parent, and one of the problems that I run into that is so-called doc-to-doc reviews, you know, when kids are in the day treatment unit or in the hospital and the insurance begins to make noises that they're going to shut down coverage, then the appeal goes to these so-called doc-to-doc reviews. And I just wonder if there's any way not to increase the quality of or shut down this whole process. I was so angry, I wrote a blog called Physician Ladies of the Night, because really that's what they are for the insurance companies. And they have no background in eating disorders typically. Sometimes they're psychiatrists. I swear to God, they are on the golf course while they're talking to me. They have not looked at the patient's chart. From the beginning, they're going to refuse, and nothing you can say will, I mean, this isn't all of them, but this is a huge majority of them, and this is a big problem for families that the parents are, it's invisible to the parents because it's so-called doc-to-doc.
Right. I think you're insulting ladies of the evening.
I'm going by that.
I agree.
Wait, yeah. Okay. So yeah, doc-to-doc reviews. We would love to see that process changing, and that's part of what Lisa and I are working on through the departments that oversee insurance, because we know that that's a big problem, especially when you've got an OB/GYN reviewing an eating disorder case, because that makes so much sense. The problem's all just in her woo-hoo. I mean, so we're really working on that issue, and until we have a better solution to it, though, don't give in to them. They may, and you don't seem like the type of person who would, but any of you who are working with treatment providers who are saying how difficult those are, that's fine. The insurance company's job is to make it very difficult. The insurance company's job is to never let you see what guidelines they're using. So you stick to your story, you stick to your patient, you need a broken record, you do not agree with them. Again, the car accident example, the person who hit me, their insurance company keeps calling me to say, there was just minor damage to your car, right? And I'll say, I can't talk to you about the damage on my car because I'm not an auto mechanic, but what I can tell you, and then I go into the treatment that I'm receiving for the car accident. And so don't let them fool you, and I encourage you, anybody who's listening to this, if you know your child is going through these doc-to-doc reviews at their treatment center, and you feel like the doctor may not know how to do a strong doc-to-doc review, have them contact us because we can give them tips on how to do that. Document everything, and know that we are fighting to make that a better process. And if you want to get involved with us, we do need more case examples. That would be really helpful.
Great.
Thank you.
So you talked about getting confirmation in writing. When I talk to my insurance company, they always give me a disclosure that you're being recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So do you find those helpful, or are those owned only by the insurance company and you can't go back on a conversation to prove what they said to you?
No, actually, you have access to all of those. So you can demand that. It's called your claim file, and so you have access to that, and you get to demand it. So, and that's part of what we seek too when we're putting together a case. Is we want all the insurance company records.
So I just had one other comment that I've had success with my insurance company writing a single case agreement, specifically with my daughter or that provider.
Okay.
And that was really helpful to ask for a single case agreement to find a provider outside my network for what we needed for specifically this disease, because they just didn't have the providers for family-based as in-network, and we were able to go outside network to get the treatment that we needed. So they wrote a single case agreement for us.
Yeah, so she's talking about a single case agreement, which we do eventually advocate for if that's the best route to go. Two things on that: make sure you check your policy and your plan to see that even though they might agree to a single case agreement, that they're actually agreeing to providers who they will pay, because we've seen them agree to this beautiful single case agreement before, but then in the fine print they actually weren't agreeing to pay the providers that they made the single case agreement with. Also on that, as family members, you should be demanding that family-based treatment is covered. Now, a lot of insurance companies exclude any home-based care. And as you all know, I'm sure a lot of insurance companies exclude nutritional care. So again, that's something we can help you fight for.
Can you talk a little bit about the Parity Act, the Mental Health Parity Act, and you said a little bit about how it didn't rule in, it didn't rule out abuse.
Yeah. Do I have time to answer one more?
One more.
One more. So the Mental Health Parity Act that was passed in 2008, yes, we worked really hard, we being the Eating Disorders Coalition, worked really closely with Patrick Kennedy and his father and Jim Ramstad on that. And Kitty Weston is very good friends with Jim Ramstad and Patrick Kennedy, and we talked to them about including it. In almost every parity hearing that was set or taken around the country, Kitty's story was mentioned. They were very, very passionate about that. However, at the last closed-door meeting that Senator Kennedy had with his son Patrick, they said, this bill is not going to pass if we try to include everything. So what we've done, though, is we've continued to advocate on mental health parity because the final rules and regulations have still not passed for mental health parity, which is a problem. That means that insurance companies don't actually have to enforce the law. So we are working actively with retired Congressman Kennedy to see that that the final rules and regulations are written and that they include eating disorders. So that's where we're working on that now. And if you're interested in getting involved,